Have you ever wondered why politics and religion seem so inseparable? It's a connection that goes back to the dawn of civilization itself, this idea of using sacred belief as a tool for political power. We're going to explore how rulers have always known something our scientists are just now confirming. The most effective control is the kind you don't even realize is there. Okay, so get this. Over 2,000 years ago, a Greek historian named Polybius is looking at the Roman Empire, and he writes this. It sounds like something straight out of a modern political science textbook, right? But here's the crazy part. He wasn't shocked by it. To him, this was just smart, a practical tool for keeping society in line. He saw the whole system for exactly what it was. And that ancient observation leaves us with a couple of massive questions, doesn't it? First, how on earth did they figure this out so long ago without any of our modern psychology? And maybe more importantly, why is this fusion of divine language and political goals still so incredibly effective, even in our supposedly skeptical age? To answer that, we've got to understand that this isn't just a Roman thing, not by a long shot. We're looking at a timeless technique of governance, a kind of ancient secret that's been passed down through civilizations. So let's crack open this playbook and see how it actually operates. Now, before we go any further, let's get one thing crystal clear. When we talk about the weaponization of religion, we're not saying that everyone's belief is fake. The reality is so much more complicated. A leader can be a genuinely devout person and also a savvy politician who understands how to use that faith to achieve their goals. Sincere belief and cynical strategy can, and often do, live in the very same person. So why is this strategy so powerful? What's the magic ingredient? Well, the answer isn't out there in political systems. It's in here, in our own minds. We need to look at the cognitive blueprint that makes us all so receptive to these powerful, sacred narratives in the first place. At our very core, we humans are meaning-making machines. We can't help it. We crave stories that make sense of the big, scary stuff. Suffering, death, the whole what's it all for question. And sacred stories are absolutely brilliant at this. They provide a framework where everything has a purpose. And that fundamental human need for meaning, well, that creates the perfect opening for those narratives to be guided. This chart shows a huge reason why sacred claims are so politically useful. Look, if a politician makes a secular claim, say about the economy, you can check the data. You can argue with facts. But a sacred claim? That's a whole different ballgame. It operates on a higher plane. You can't empirically prove or disprove it. So if you can attach your political agenda to that, you've suddenly made it almost impossible to argue with. Religion is also maybe the most powerful engine for creating community ever invented. When you have shared rituals, shared texts, shared holy places, you forge bonds that are way deeper than simple patriotism. So, when a ruler steps up and positions themselves as the protector of that sacred identity, loyalty becomes something much closer to devotion. And suddenly, disagreeing with them isn't just a political argument, it's a betrayal of the community's soul. Okay, so with that cognitive blueprint in our back pocket, let's look at the actual tools. This is the statesman's toolkit, the specific methods rulers have used throughout history to blend the sacred with the political. Emperor Augustus was an absolute master of this. After the chaos of the Roman civil wars, he didn't just rebuild the government, he gave it a spiritual renovation. Look at this timeline. He restored dozens of temples. He made himself Rome's chief priest. He even had his adoptive father Julius Caesar declared a god, which conveniently made him the son of a god. He was manufacturing sacred meaning and aiming it right at political stability. A really key tool here is something you could call manufacturing sacred geography. This is the art of taking a physical place, a building, a river, a city, and investing it with divine meaning. When Augustus built that temple to Mars the Avenger, he wasn't just putting up a cool building. He was turning his military history into a permanent, sacred landmark. His political argument was literally set in stone. Now let's jump forward about 1,000 years. Pope Urban II's call for the First Crusade is a masterclass. He didn't just ask for an army, no. As you can see, he framed the entire mission in these epic, apocalyptic terms. This wasn't just a war for land, it was a cosmic duty. Military service became a holy act, and the reward was the forgiveness of all your sins. I mean, what secular call to arms could possibly compete with that? But here's the danger, and it is a critical point. Once you unleash that kind of religious fire, this eschatological engine, the belief in a divine end to history, it is incredibly hard to control. The passions and beliefs you kickstart almost always grow beyond the control of the person who started it all. They take on the life of their own. And we see this dynamic get even more intense during the Reformation. Now, this was a genuine theological movement, of course, but it was also a massive political event that completely changed the relationship between church and state. It basically led to the nationalization of God in Europe. This comparison really makes the shift obvious. Before, you had the big, transnational Catholic Church, which could act as a check on a king's power. Your loyalty was divided. But afterward, you get these national churches, which often became powerful tools of the state. Suddenly, loyalty to your king and loyalty to your country's religion were one and the same thing. They were fused together like never before. So all of this leads to a really fascinating psychological consequence. Because it turns out this isn't just a one-way street, from the powerful down to the people. It creates a complex and powerful feedback loop, which leads to this question. What happens to the leader who maybe starts out just cynically using religion as a tool? What happens when you perform the role of the divinely chosen one for years, for decades? Can that performance actually become real to you? And the answer, it seems, is often yes. A leader who is constantly performing that conviction, who is treated by thousands of followers as a divine instrument, they can eventually come to believe their own propaganda. That constant reinforcement from the crowd dissolves the line between the strategic role and their actual identity. The mask fuses with the face. And that feedback loop works both ways. People are not passive consumers of these stories. They take them, they internalize them, they build on them, and they often spin them in wildly unpredictable directions. The religious energy a leader unleashes rarely stays in the neat channels they intended for it. So, where does all this leave us? Well, bringing all these historical patterns into the present day gives us a really powerful and frankly kind of sobering takeaway about the world we're living in right now. The solution isn't to just become a cynic who dismisses all belief as a scam. The source material suggests a much more nuanced approach, a discipline of suspicious attention. It's about learning to see the mechanisms at work without necessarily throwing away your own genuine faith. And this discipline comes with its own toolkit. So next time you hear sacred language being used in a political context, just ask yourself these questions. Who benefits from framing it this way? What becomes taboo to question once this narrative takes hold? Who is being set up as the enemy here? And what does that license people to do to them? And this is the powerful idea we're left with. Being able to separate your genuine theological commitments from their political uses isn't an attack on faith. It's essential for a healthy society. Because a population that loses the ability to tell the difference isn't just a community of believers anymore. It becomes a tool. It becomes a loaded weapon, just waiting for someone to come along and pull the trigger.